Our sponsors for this episode are MTO Commercial and Residential Cleaning Services. MTO has been, still is, and will always be a locally owned and operated company. Paula started MTO in 1994 and has been serving Harvey County residents ever since. If you're looking for a one-time clean or a weekly, bi-weekly, or a monthly spruce-up, no need to worry. MTO gives free estimates. Give Paula a call at 316-288-9141. That's 316-288-9141. Shelter Insurance. Bradley Cook with Shelter Insurance is located at 227 West Broadway Street. That's 227 West Broadway Street in Newton, Kansas. You can give them a call at 316-283-4241. That's 316-283-4241. Bradley Cook, Bradley serving Newton, Kansas and surrounding areas. Is your AC or heating system just not keeping up? Maybe it's not keeping your home or business as cold or hot as it once did. It could also be that all you're looking for is a reliable, trustworthy, and affordable technician to check on your system and do whatever maintenance necessary to ensure it's working as efficiently and effectively as possible. If so, give Air Quality Control a call at 316-285-3304. That's Air Quality Control, 316-285-3304 for all your air quality control needs. Well, hello, everybody, and hello, Andy and Chad. How was your guys' week this week?
Cold.
That's all you got, Chad? It's
That's
just
all
cold?
I got, man. Cold.
That's in the news. Andy?
It's good.
Yeah?
Getting towards the end of the week. It's on Thursday. Usually we do this on Wednesday.
Yep.
A little weather issues.
Got us
People
behind.
get stuck in driveways.
Yeah.
That would be me.
I was trying to get out so you guys got stuck myself. So it's like not much help. I was like, I got to help myself first before I can go help them. And I was like, how am I going to get down there if I didn't even get, literally, I didn't even get going.
Well, I'm glad I didn't commit, because if I would have committed, I think I would have buried my car in your driveway with nobody able to get in and nobody able to get out. So
It'd have been, it'd have been bad.
I just want to say thank you to Hennis Excavation for coming out. Y'all guys see how clean that was today?
Yeah.
Came out and knocked it out. So really
Nice.
appreciate having them come and help us when we have. That was a lot of snow, by the way.
yeah,
He was like, I don't know how that SUV gets through that. But
yeah. Well, fast.
Yeah.
Fast, I think, is the key word to
Dude,
that.
yeah. Mama got a lead foot.
yeah,
Just saying.
I told her.
Get on it.
Yeah, she was like, okay.
And she did. I was like, woo. Yeah, my car would have been like, whoosh. But anyway, okay, so, let's start with that. Of all the things that I have listed here, the very top one is titled "Let It Snow." Let it snow. Let it snow. With the school closures, we have had some record-setting snowfall in different places in Kansas. I saw that the temperatures today or this morning set records for the just being so cold. So this is not normal, but there is a little bit of spice on this one, folks. It turns out that maybe, just maybe, because of the weather that we've had this year, that our school might be having to do a little bit of adjustment when it comes to how many days that we're looking at here for all the closures. So what do you got for that, Chad?
Well, I got a mushy brain, which means I don't remember all the numbers. But here's what I do remember for sure: Newton High School's out. They're out of school days, and on Monday, Andy and the Board of Education are going to be talking about how to handle the rest of the school year for at least Newton High School. I think Santa Fe's also in that, where they're at deficit, meaning that they've used more school days or more snow days than they had.
Yeah, they allotted for.
Right. And so there's going to be some adjustments, and there'll also be adjustments, I think, to next year's calendar being talked about on Monday, because that was brought up initially 2 weeks ago. So that's what I know, right? So, who knows what they'll come up with.
Yeah. Yeah.
But whatever it is, we're just gonna have to put our heads down and get through it. And And just to put that sort of personal spin on it, here's the personal spin. I don't remember what year it was. I want to say it was like 78. Where I grew up, we had a record-breaking winter, and honestly, it was much worse than this one here in Newton, Kansas in 2025. And I remember having to go to school on some Saturdays in the spring because they didn't want to extend past Labor Day. So I'm not saying that that's what Newton's going to do, but just be prepared that they have to come up with an answer, and they will come up with one.
So what you're saying, Chad, is that Andy's already said that the rest of the school year they're going to be going every Saturday until the school year's over. And Andy, you're in control of that. So you got anything to say about that? Are you really going to make everybody's kids go to school every Saturday for the rest of the year? Can you believe that?
President Ortiz over here. Trying to draw a wedge between me and Melissa.
Dictator Ortiz. No, okay. Yeah. So anyways, all joking.
I will check with our president and see what she thinks.
Yes. What does Melissa? It's on you. You have to.
Our VP too will be involved in those conversations. But I'll tell you, this is probably how it's going to go. Fred and Joe and their leadership team are rock stars. They probably have 4 or 5 ideas already. They get together. They're going to sit for 30 minutes, power through it, come up with some great ideas to give us some options, and then they make us look like rock stars. That's how that works.
Yeah. Well, you guys got some great faculty. I'll tell you. The truth of the matter is USD 373 has some rock stars on it. For those people that have really responded well to the updates that we've been doing with HC Talk, just a quick rundown. We've been doing it with Sheriff Chad Gay. Been able to do one with Newton City Commissioner Rod Cry. Been able to do one with Newton Area Chamber of Commerce. And most recently, we're starting to do one with Carly Stavola, who is the communications director for USD 273. So I'll be sure to ask Carly what you all decided, because I'm sure that'll be a hot topic issue. Hopefully it won't be a 3 thing, and it'll wind up having a good, solid decision that's made so we can look forward to what's going to happen. But if you get a chance, make sure to watch those updates. Just sending a shout out to all those people that are doing that. Really appreciate it. It's just another way that they reach out to be transparent with the community. You can't beat it. You really can't beat it. We've got some major rock stars in our community that are willing to go above and beyond in every way they can to service this community any way they can. So, Chad, I just want to go ahead and start with local news. 2 things that I found interesting in the paper recently was about the Waymakers Academy. That made some front page news. And then something about a local church finding a new home.
Oh, yeah.
What do you got on that before I tell everybody the other topics that we're going to talk about?
The church with a new home?
Yeah.
Well, here's what I got on that. This is kind of the completion of a story/saga that started partially with me a couple years ago. The church in question was the Faith Temple Remnant, which sits on 11th Street. I was one of the first to notice the smoke coming from underneath the roof and call 911. And that poor little church it's gone through a number of things. I was the one that called about the racist vandalism several years ago, and so I had gotten to know Pastor Hubbard several years ago, and at one point was actually mowing the church yard because it's a couple doors down from my house. So they had a fire, and it basically, it gutted the building. And initially they went to a church over on Fairview, used their gymnasium for a little while, and then there was some transitions at that church, and so Pastor Hubbard decided to convert his church to a house church, and so they were actually meeting at his house, which is in Wichita, for quite a while. And now, because Pastor Hubbard had a good relationship with now retired Pastor Larry Lee, he's been able to merge/take over All Nations, which is over on 7th Street. That's the story in a nutshell.
Yeah. Well, that's a church killer. I just got to say, something like that, I mean, for all the splits and all the drama that seems to happen, sadly, in churches nowadays, sometimes say that works out. But this knowledge that you have a church that suffers complete devastation, and instead of all of those parishioners going other places, that would be naturally easier. I mean, there's plenty of churches to pick from, right? You know,
Right.
So instead of all of those parishioners going to other churches and just disbanding the church, they held it together. I mean, and then wound up pursuing it to the point where now they have a home again.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a
And-
success story. I
Well,
mean,
yes, and one of the uniquenesses of this is that this was not a large church to start with, right? So, you know, Grace Hill had a big fire within the last 25 years. Completely gutted their original church. It burned to the ground. There was nothing left on it when that was over. They have a beautiful, I say new, 20-something-year-old building now that's just right over by Remington High School. Can't remember the full name of the church, but there was a church in Hillsborough that underwent the same thing, an MB church. And I covered that too, because at the time I was floating around Hillsborough. And they have a brand spanking new, 20 now years old, building that church was able to build. Those churches had several hundred people as their membership. Faith Temple has less than a dozen. So it's really a big deal
Yeah.
that they've been able to find a new church building. I'm choosing my words carefully because your church home is not inside the building.
Yeah. It's
But-
the community.
Right.
Yeah.
So, but they've found a new building and are able to chart a path forward with the new building, which is great.
Andy, what do you think about that? I gotta ask, up from the ashes, what do you think causes a church in a situation like that, a community of believers, to instead of disband, to remain whole until they can move on as a community to do something different?
I mean, I'm gonna say it probably has to do with leadership. I don't know much about this particular situation, but leadership is key. And building a family within that group means a lot to a lot of people. And today there's never, for a lot of people, more of a need for that type of community than exists today. So when you have a good leader and they care about people and people can feel and know that, they're gonna follow that. And I've been blessed to be a part of communities like that in my life. And so I'm grateful that they stuck it out and figured it out, stuck together, and that they're loving on each other and building this life experience of triumph through the ashes.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think it's huge.
Tragedy, and from tragedy into prosperity. That's an amazing story. Waymakers, Chad. Explain a little bit about Waymakers. I know a little bit about Waymakers because I'm involved in CCRT, which is a partner of the Waymaker program, but this is something kind of new, and they're really starting to see quite a bit of success with it. I mean, the Harvey County Health Department Director, Lynette Reddington, is the one that was presenting stats, if I'm correct, to the commission in this event, and then they've really seen some considerable numbers when it comes to that, have they not?
Well, yeah. Not every program's success or lack thereof is defined by the numbers. This would be one that is not necessarily defined by the numbers, though their numbers are good. It is a pilot project, and it's a partnership of the CCRT and the jail and Prairie View. I can't remember the other one. I got the article laying here in front
The
of me.
Kansan.
Yeah.
Oh, somebody's gonna be mad.
Put
Can
you
we
on the
clip that,
spot.
put it out there just so we can bake him up a little bit?
But
And let him share it on his page?
yes.
No.
It's really good. Horrible.
So, but the program is they're providing group meetings and peer mentor meetings and just support for folks that are trying to kick their drug habit,
Yeah.
who are sitting in Harvey County Hilton.
And then plugging them into support network groups.
Yes,
you know,
they
I mean,
are.
like for people that are in a situation like that, I know sometimes just trying to get your head above water, fighting an addiction doesn't allow you to know about the available resources that are going to aid you down that path.
Right.
And the Waymakers is kind of a hub for these different entities to get together and be able to do it. But the numbers to me are impressive. I think
Well,
I was looking at
here's the
something like
deal, man.
70%
Yeah, well,
of
it's-
people that go through the program or participate in the program. I don't know exactly how they do their statistics, but are remaining clean and sober and changing their life.
To get in there, you have to have a referral. And beyond that, you have to go through an interview process. Only 36% of people interviewed have been accepted into the Waymakers program. Once they're in there, they go and they keep coming back, and they just continue to go. So it's not like they go to a meeting and like, oh, this ain't for me. No, that's not what's going on. They go to a meeting and like, okay, I want to come back next week. And the numbers that you would be talking about is that so far they've had 36 people released after going through the Waymakers program. So they've had 36 inmates get out of jail. And of course the support doesn't stop there because there's still peer mentor groups.
Yep.
Some of them can get referred into drug court, and that's another, 3 months of supervision and meetings. Of the 36 people that have been released, 5 have returned to the detention center. And the whole point here is to deal with recidivism, which is a big word for making sure people don't come back.
Yeah.
Right? At least not on a drug charge.
You know what, that's tough in that
So-
community, let's be real about it. There's
Oh,
a lot of
yeah.
challenges, and when you're in those circles and you find yourself in that position to find a new group of people and a new way of life and new surroundings, it doesn't trigger you to put you back into that cycle, and it is a vicious cycle that most people fall into once you get to a certain level of that. For people to be able to adjust that number at that level is huge.
Yes.
I mean, that's rock star stuff. So whoever's leading that, thank you for doing it. That's amazing.
Yeah, and it's a partnership. I mean, I'm really excited about what the future holds for that, because once people realize, especially in that community, hey, I struggled with addiction for years. I went through this program. I got the support that I needed. These people were contact people for me, and I've been successful. So if I've been successful, then the word hits the street, just like that drug, you know, of how good it's going to be and how it's going to change your life and how it's going to do. Except for on the other end, the consequences of that are all positive and beneficial. And I really have a hard time thinking that if people are that serious and want to move in that direction, that they're not going to be. I mean, we've talked about this on the program before. Not to say major, minor drugs or anything here, or to change, you know, and say that any are less addictive than the other, but, you know, with this fentanyl and these hardcore drugs that people are getting addicted to, that is as mentioned before on previous program with somebody that was a volunteer for CCRT, Marcadia Hoolan and his wife, was that, these are biologically changing drugs. You become addicted to these, and it changes your entire biology in that way.
Well, there's medications that get prescribed to people
Yeah.
that are just as potent, and it takes an act of God to come off of them. I don't have the names of them on top, but I know there's a gentleman that I followed for a lot of years who was all about the mind, right? Jordan Peterson. Read almost all his books and watched, I would say, hundreds of hours of content from him over the years. And he went through hell trying to detox from medications. And he literally had to get put in the hospital. And as much as he studied his mind and understands the triggers, even with all that knowledge and all this stubbornness, he had a hell of a time kicking it to where it's a rough story. He disappeared for a couple of years from being a public figure, because that's what it took for him to get over the hump. But when you do the research on these medications, and certain ones in particular that he was taking, it totally does adjust your body, your mind, your spirit. I mean, it becomes why you live, right? To keep that, and some of it you need it in your system, or you'll literally, your body will break down.
Yeah, get sick. It's almost like not having food or water. I mean,
100%.
it's crazy situation. Okay, Chad. So, is there anything else local that you'd like to cover that I didn't bring up? Because those were just the two that had caught my eye. You know, I read the paper all the time. Just what do you got? Anything else that you want to discuss, just right off the top of your head, or anything upcoming maybe that people can look forward to in the Kansan?
Yeah, I got something I think is kind of cool Saturday, and I might be the only person who thinks this is cool, but doggone it, it's cool. So just through a little luck and a little happenstance, I caught up with a member of the very first, and I mean first, girls cross country team from Newton High School, and found out that the juice was worth the squeeze, so to speak, because, you know, it took a lot of work to get girls' sports into high schools. And it took a lot of work to get girls and women's sports into colleges. So she was only able to compete under the Newton Railer banner as a female and on a female team for 1 year. She did compete in boys cross country and boys swimming during her career at Newton High. The cool thing to me is that she went on to be part of the very first women's cross country team at Fort Hays State University. And then she transferred to Emporia State, where she became a member of the very first cross country team for girls and women at Emporia State University. And in that very first season, that team finished second in the nation for the NAIA. So she, through an extension of all of that, not that she wouldn't have deserved it already, got inducted into the Emporia State University Hall of Fame. And, you know, you think the challenge there, right? So she's got that challenge all along the way. She's got challenges just to be able to compete. Well, to get to her induction ceremony, with a broken foot, she had to navigate through Hurricane Helen. When she went to the ceremony, she enjoyed the ceremony, and then she went on a vacation with her husband. And during that time, her home got hit by another hurricane.
You say I think that's interesting to anybody
sauce,
listening to
Jesus.
this.
Exactly.
Like, this is what I get.
And so, you know, I was approached, I'm like, do you think this is a story? I'm like, yeah, it's a story. Well, you know, can you give this over to your sports editor? I'm like, heck no.
I'm writing about
I
it.
mean, dude, you were the member of 3 different first teams in history.
Yeah.
Me? That's front page.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's even before you start talking about hurricanes. So that's coming on Saturday.
Yeah. So
Cool.
I'll definitely.
So it's
little teaser action.
Yeah, I mean, does she live in Newton now? No, she does not. But guess what, dudes? We need to be absolutely proud of this woman, because man, that's something else.
Does she save big money at Menards?
I know. I was gonna say. Hey, let me see.
Dude, that's some good stuff.
Andy,
Do
Andy, let
they
me see.
have Menards in Florida? I don't know.
It's got some awesome clientele base here. I'm like,
Right, here, let me see that. I was gonna say, Andy put this on the table. It's like, here's a break. We're having a break here, folks. If you get your most recent
11%
article
off
of the Newton Canvas, you can get an 11% off rebate on everything. It starts Sunday, 2/16. A little bit past due here, but hey. So you can save big money.
It starts on the
at
16th.
Menards.
You know what I'm saying?
That's right. So
Get
and
it.
I don't think you actually have to take this flyer in to be able to get it. They're just letting you know that they've got a super sale going on. So save big money at Menards.
So and I'm gonna take 1 second, and I'm gonna state unequivocally that my first choice is gonna always be to go see Greg over at B&B.
Yeah, oh yeah, Greg.
Love
Don't get mad.
Good old
Greg.
Greg
Olich.
Just,
And I love Greg. I love him
Poke,
to death. And there is a product that I'm interested in purchasing that Greg told me just go to Menards.
oh, you just busted him out. You can't do that.
The reason is B&B doesn't carry it. They have no interest in carrying said product.
Right.
And pretty much nobody is carrying that product other than Menards. So,
Yeah.
you know.
And I just gotta say,
and therein
all
is
the
why,
disclaimers here.
therein is why B&B and Greg will always be my first choice because
I love it.
he's not afraid to look at me and say, nah, just go.
Well, and truth be
I'm just
told,
gonna be honest, sometimes what I save going to Menards is not worth the drive to get there and back and the time and everything else. If
Yeah.
you factor it all in, it's like, I'm going to
Yeah.
B&B.
Well,
And I always
that's
get
a
taken-
lot of stuff, yeah.
I always get taken care of out
Yeah.
there. And to your point, I try to go when he's working, because they'll tell me, nope. I'm like, all right, thank you for saving me 30 minutes walking around your store.
Greg at B&B Lumber does a great job, and if you see anything on social media, he can do and knows about everything.
Pianos, cello lessons, he's done it all.
I recently asked a question about snow removal, and somebody said, check with Greg at B&B Lumber. So, but we love you, Greg.
Wasn't
You're
a-
awesome.
There's an
wasn't a-
ongoing
wasn't
inside
a-
joke.
Yeah, that was a lawyer from Wichita, right?
Yeah. I mean, we can throw a bunch of, if you needed an attorney, check with Summers, Rob, and Rob. if you need anything for hardware or anything, I would say go check with Greg.
Now we're going to get a
B&B
letter
Lumber.
of cease and desist.
Yeah, right. Because we're like advocating for them, right? Okay, so then I'll even say, while we're talking about places that you can go, I live just down the street from Ace, and you know, and I do 9 times out of 10. Everybody knows I shop local, so you know, even though I'm joking about the ad and whatnot, if I can go to Ace, I go to Ace. The man that owns it
We have a
is
great team
my
out there.
neighbor. That one thing I love about what they're doing and what they do is you walk in that door and you will almost always have somebody that asks you if you need help, even if you don't need help. And then many times I'll say, no, I don't need any help, and I'm like, damn, where'd that guy go? I need some
I
help.
got 2 guys that I look for in particular, and so they know that. And there's one gal too. I really like her a lot. I'm in there all the time because of some of the work I do. But anyways, sometimes some of the newer ones I don't know, because we all know when we go in there enough times, we know what's the drill. They kind of stalk you a little bit. They want to help you so bad.
They want to help you so bad. Yeah, it's
I don't look like a stealer, do I?
no, they're
They're just like ready to be like, I can help.
Yes.
Like, hey.
yes, and I bet
Yeah,
you
I got a
somewhere
couple
in there.
go-to, and I do. I got a couple of go-to guys over there.
And I bet you,
Yeah.
it almost seems like a company culture there. That the company culture is, if you walk in the door by the time you walk in the door, somebody's telling you, hey, how are you doing? You need any help? Or hey, it's good to see you. I mean, there's never a time when, whether I know who the person working at the cash register is or not, they're greeting you when you walk in the door. You can't get halfway down the aisle. I mean, if they're not horribly busy, they're congregating right in the middle of the store. So you about can't go anywhere. I was like, if I don't need help, it's like, don't make eye contact. Don't make eye contact, because they're going to ask me if I need help, and then I'm going to get 2 aisles down, and then they're going to ask me if I need help, and then I'm going to go another aisle over, and they're going to ask me if I need. I mean, it's a culture. It is
What I
a
found
culture.
out is you just go at them right away.
Like, I don't need
I know
help.
you're a regular by the way you approach them.
Yeah.
That's like,
Yeah,
if I
yeah.
need you, I'll come back for you.
Yeah.
I'm going to be innovating. They're like, oh man, I'm staying away from that one. I know what that means.
Oh
This
yeah.
guy.
Well,
Yeah.
you know, I swear, it's like I go in there with these complex problems. I was recently doing it, not to get on the side road, but you know, I got an older house, and it was I gotta do this plumbing issue, which then turned into, well, I gotta do this now, and then now I'm doing. So I'm 5 steps down trying to stop a leak, which I fixed, but then it turned into another thing, to another thing, to another thing, like any home improvement project is. And I found myself in there going, okay, so I've got to figure out how to piece this together and figure out what I got to do. And they're helping me the whole way, like, oh yeah, you can connect that to this, and then you come over here, and this will save you some money, and then you can do this and that. It's like, man, if I didn't have that, I'd just be in there.
Amazon
staring.
doesn't do that for
No. Walmart. I mean, I'm not anything against Walmart.
YouTube
here,
can only
but-
take you so far.
Yeah, you can't go to Amazon like I did, many years ago. You can't go to Amazon and go, so I just moved into this apartment, and the shower's in the basement, and there's like no enclosure, so I'm trying to figure out a way to build some kind of enclosure. And Amazon won't look at you and say, okay, here's what you need.
Yeah. Yeah.
You need this for PVC, you need these elbows, you need these rings, and then there's the cheapest curtain right over there, get 2 of those, and this is how you put it together.
Yeah.
Well, do I need to glue it? I don't think so, but if you need to, come back.
Yeah.
Well, and it's only 2 blocks to go back, so hey!
And they're convenient all the time. Okay, so now
There we go. Sides. got our rants.
We did.
out.
Oh, you know, hey, at least it wasn't negative. I can't take it. No one will go out and be like, you know what? Lance was really positive on this last program, and he really talked up our community.
Another cease and desist.
Yeah. I don't want you to. I don't want you.
Take my name, and we're just gonna.
I doubt it. I mean, you know, if you think about it, I mean, in all reality, we're talking about our own personal.
If they do that, I'd really go to Menards and only Menards.
Oh goodness!
Just saying.
Too much.
You burn gas but save money.
Yeah, I found a way to make it negative. Let's move.
Well, and then even then you go to Menards. I mean, okay, we got to move on. Okay, can't say anything negative. Don't want to say anything negative about anything because pro positive will never get you in trouble. Only negative. So. Let's try to not be negative here.
But two negatives make it positive?
Well, I mean, that's the way
wondering.
I've lived my life, and I guess that's not the way that society sees it, so I
Hey,
better just...
the battery doesn't deliver any power until you hook up the negative terminal, okay? Just saying.
We're having too much fun here, okay?
We are.
This is a serious program. We discuss serious things on this program, guys.
Sure.
Just settle down. Okay, so into the serious things that we have here. That's been going on here recently. It's kind of interesting. So I'll let you guys pick because I have them in no particular order. But AI is killing critical thinking skills. Study was done and the results are in. No kings on President's Day protest. Is it a fair perspective or more bias at play? It's all poison. RFK Jr., Elon, USAID, Doge, and what's really going on. And then it's the People's Republic of China from here. Technology and world global trade. What do you got? Chad, what do you think? Andy, which one do you want to cover?
What do you want, Andy?
I can roll it down. If you want me to. Okay.
Yeah.
So,
Andy's at the plate.
so there was a study done here recently from. Let me get there. Don't want to be doing this here. A study was done by Michael Gerlich at SBS, Swiss Business School, and they have found that increased reliance on artificial intelligence tools is linked to diminished critical thinking skills.
Yeah, that's right up my alley, actually. Helping with user interfaces and that kind of stuff. It's just like when Google brought in the digital map. I mean, you see kids today that have acclimated, but you know, if that Google map didn't tell them where to go, they don't know what's up, down, left, or right. And it is another migration into that. With AI, people think algorithms were scary. This is algorithms on
Steroids.
and then all kinds of other whatever creatines and whatever boosters you want to give it, right? It is all of that. It is so deep in our brains and our subconscious. It can learn how to write like you after you give it 10 or 15 writings that you do, and it can learn how to change the writing style to meet your writing style so it doesn't sound like it's so foreign or so uppity professional coming from Los Angeles real estate, the high-end stuff, which it will give you if you ask it. But it can say, oh, this is how you take pictures. You downloaded 5,000 pictures with your editing style. You don't have to edit ever again because I know exactly what your style is, and I'm going to throw you in, 5 seconds. Your whole wedding playlist that used to take you, 2 hours to thumb through before you pulled the ones out you want to start editing, it's done. All of them, and it's already happening. That's not a maybe. That's what's happening now. So all this is going to do is we have to figure out what the future looks like to empower our kiddos, because the next threat when we go to war or we have to fight for our freedoms of some sort, because it will happen because that's human nature eventually, is how do we empower them to know how to grow vegetables and keep that part of life tangible, because we will be very helpless without technology, and we are already pretty close to being there for a lot of us. Not to be negative, but that's,
it's
what it is.
a reality. It's a reality.
I probably shouldn't do this, but I'm just gonna out something here, okay? I sent an email off today to 2 people above my pay grade in my corporation because I had an ethical question that I wanted to ask. And I already consulted with somebody within my building, about how, to me this is an ethical question, and it's one that I do not feel I should be answering because it's above my pay grade. Can I answer the question? Yes.
Absolutely.
But am I paid to? No. And so here it is. My parent corporation, Cherry Road Media, put out statements about the use of AI by newsrooms last year and was very unabashed and very upfront and said, we will not. We absolutely will not. Newsrooms will not use content that is generated by AI. Right? So I am not allowed to go to an AI and say, watch this video of the Board of Education from February 17th and write me a story about what happened. I can't do that. I'm not allowed to. We have a progress guide coming up which is going to feature a lot of submitted content. And it's submitted by the persons who paid for an ad. Okay? We offered every one of those advertisers two options. One was to submit their own thing, and the other was to have me write it for hire. I hate writing for hire. I'm going to be straight up. I absolutely hate it. To me, it's not about the money. It's the ethical thing, right? But one of those persons who chose to submit their own content emailed a link to ChatGPT for content created about his company by ChatGPT. So therein, to me, lies the ethical question that I have to ask. If it's not okay for us as a newsroom to do this, and we have said we will not publish this.
Good setup.
Is it okay for the dude that's paying that ad? Is it okay for him to submit that? Do we publish it? Now, left to my own devices to make this decision on my own, if I'm a publisher, my response is, that's what he paid for.
If that's the content he wants to provide for you,
Right.
however he got the content,
Correct.
that's
And
on
I do
him.
want to tell
Correct.
you something real quick on the flip side of that. As an advertiser, let me just put that hat on for a
Sure.
second here. That content that was generated for his business, where do you think those keypads are looking for?
Oh, they're looking from within, yeah.
So he literally got and gave you the information that's going to help him be found by what the computer wants to see.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's literally telling you all your keywords, all the stuff you used to have to battle over, all your search words, things you had to look over every month to figure out if anything switched or changed, is given to you instantly.
Yeah, I gotta say,
It's the computer
yeah.
talking to you, telling you what it wants.
and I gotta say too, like if you look at
Talk about outwitting the devil.
yeah, and I got this too. I mean, if you use and I gotta say this, you use chat AI, we'll just call it, to ask what is Harvey County taught, it really just hits the nail on the head.
It's getting better.
I mean, it's like, whoa, wow. I mean, I don't know if I could have said that, but
There may or may not have been some feeding going on there.
No, we're not gonna go there. But see,
Give it some holy water every once in a while.
and you know what? Because we are primarily a digital company, and everything goes out into the ether, if we call it that, whether it be on Facebook or whether it be on Instagram or whether it be on Rumble or YouTube. It takes a snapshot of all of the data that's compiled from every podcast we've ever done, any topic that we've talked about, any topic that our guest has brought up, everything we have talked about, and it's like, okay, this is what it is. And it's like, wow, thank you. And AI, all right. Final word for me on this is, it's almost like if we don't know what we're dealing with and actively gain control over this and use it as a tool, then the tool uses us.
100%.
So if we're not in the driver's seat, we don't realize this tool is at our disposal or something of value that we can use to make our job, let's say, a little bit easier, similar to the tractor, right, or the plow, or anything, the evolution of anything that we've seen. It would be like being a farmer and saying, no, I'm not going to use this tractor and this plow. I'm going to stick with the horse and walking behind it. and expect to evolve into the future. Now, you don't want to just set the tractor out there and say plow the field and let it go.
But you can with AI.
Well,
Yeah. Well, and you know, we
bad analogy. Bad analogy.
we as a company also had to ask ourselves, do we want to use AI to do things like narrate stories? Well, here's your answer. In order for it to narrate the story, you got to feed it the story. And once you've fed it the story, you've lost control.
Yeah, we've got some strategies me and Al Lance are literally talking about today that we'll share with you as well, because, you know,
Me casa, su casa.
So
Chad.
it's just kind of
Yeah,
So
there's
you-
some things going on, and there's some. I've been kind of playing in this world for a while now, and it's amazing where it's going, and I feel like, and I can't speak for any other company other than myself. You can operate 3 or 4 people's worth of activity if you learn how to use the tools that are available today.
Yeah.
I don't want to give up any of our secrets, but you know, you're able to take some very specific tools and use it. And I've seen Lance master this over the last 8 months like nobody's business. And there's a reason for all of it. It's not just happenstance.
Feeding the system.
100%.
Feeding the beast. I hate to call it a beast.
Yeah,
You know,
but it is.
But it is.
I mean, it
It's-
is.
yeah.
And you've got to choke it out and own it,
Yeah.
right? And you said it perfectly. You can't let it own you. And I think it's this big, scary new thing that we think is going to take our jobs, and it can actually help us become more productive once we figure out what it's doing and how we can use it for our professions. And there's things that you could do to save so much time with your schedule, because you give so much to the community. It doesn't mean you won't be doing it. It's just doing it a little differently and allowing some tools to plow for you while you're doing other things, like maybe getting them a little more family time in, or whatever those things are, going to ball games and stuff like that, because we are getting busier, and if we don't find ways to use these new tools, we're going to be overwhelmed.
Yeah.
Because the world is going so fast, and we can't do it all.
Yeah. Well, and speaking of something local that's relative with AI and how things have evolved, and it may not be the best example because it does save money, but it also removes a position. And it was, man, we might be looking at maybe 6 months, 7 months ago now. I was at a Harvey County Commission meeting, and Chief Judge Wilder came in and said that they were wanting to adopt this new technology that would take and listen to everything that was said during a court hearing, and then it would automatically transcribe it for them. So then there was no need for a court reporter. And it wasn't the fact that they didn't want a court reporter or somebody to transcribe it. It was the fact that they just didn't have anybody. And so then, well, what do? Well, we've got to change up what we do. So anyway,
Well, and a lot of times in technology, and we might justify it this way, but I want to tell you what we say. It's not about getting rid of that job. It's about repositioning those bad activities to something else.
yeah, makes 100% sense. And once again, it goes back to the analogy, the bad one of the farmer, and what are we going to continue down this path, or are we going to do something different? All right, so the next on the list is No Kings on President's Day protests. Is it fair or more bias at play? And the only thing that I have to say about this is, it seems as though people's hatred blinds their critical thinking skills. We talked about this before. And when we're talking about this idea that likening Trump to a king or something, it's you could do the same thing for many other presidents of the past, depending upon how you view. It's like for one individual, it's okay. It goes back to this. For one individual, everything that Biden did was right. He was spot on. He was one of the best presidents there ever was. And then anything that Trump does, even if he goes into a burning building and saves babies, then he must have lit the building on fire to go in there and save the baby so he'd look good. I mean, is it fair? Do you guys think that the protests against Trump, calling him a king, is a little bit too far, or is it spot on, depending upon your worldview?
As long as they're doing legal stuff, I mean, people got the right to their opinion. And I would rather them be able to do that and voice their opinion than us put laws against them not being able to do that and hurting our free speech. So, there's a lot of things we have to deal with, especially when you choose to do this kind of stuff and you put yourself out there. People are going to say and do, and I don't know if anybody here at this table has more experience than Chad, frankly, so I'm kind of talking out of school with you sitting here, but people are going to take shots at you and put you in a box and do all those things, and they get to do it.
Yeah.
And that's one of the most beautiful things. You know what you get to do? You get to listen to it or not, or take feedback or not, and depending on where you want to categorize it. There are some people online that do things, and I think they're funny, and I think it's funny that people continue to go back and fight them, because I see them joking with people in a way that they're just showing how ridiculous it is.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's funny to a point, but then sometimes I'm just like, I don't want none of that today, so I don't look. Because I already know the story.
Yeah,
I've seen it 1,000
Poking that
times,
bear,
like
poking that
literally
bear.
over
Yeah.
the last 7 or 8 years, and I'm like, man, this person really doesn't get it. And yeah, you made your point like 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And when I'm real bored, I might want to just catch up on the crazy, but I usually don't do that, because you know, you in your mind categorize things, and I don't watch or listen to the school board stuff. I don't read those articles that say anything. People tell me about things that are written and said, and I try not. There's a reason I try not to get involved with it. I'm ignorant to most of it, because I just make the best decision I can. People hate me. I don't know half of them.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, they got
And
you
I'm
figured out, Andy.
Yeah, and I'm okay with that. But I have my rights too.
Yeah.
And here we are doing what we're doing, and I think freedom of speech trumps all of that, pun intended. If they want to show up and call him a king, good for you, as long as you're within the rules and boundaries and the laws, and you're speaking your heart, your truth, and whatever you feel like you got to do to activate your system, you get to do that. And you know, time will tell, this way or that way, what your opinions are. You know, we've had the COVID thing, right? Time will tell what all, and it still hasn't unfolded all of that, but it'll come out in time. And it's not my job. My job is make my decisions for me and my family to the best of my ability. We have our talks and our huddles, and we go out into the world and do what we do. And sometimes they don't all agree with me, and sometimes they do. And guess what? We get to do that here. I was watching something about Germany and how pissed off they were about a talk that our vice president gave over there about suppression of speech and people getting taken in and arrested for memes that they created. And that's a scary world.
Mm-hmm.
And we are not too far from that if we don't check each other and stop beating each other up and say, hey, you know what, they get to do that.
Yeah.
Alex Jones is a little crazy, but guess what? I'd rather him be a little crazy and do what he does. And if there's consequences, there's consequences, right? But at the end of the day, I'll go with freedom of speech all day long. So.
Because at what point in time do you become the one that's then crazy and then are restricted from your beliefs and what you want to do, even though you're not crazy? We watched this happen, Chad. Is it?
Oracle. This is one of your Oracle moments.
This is one of my orders.
Well, I know
Yeah,
we've talked
I would call you
before.
about something like this, because I have
You know.
called you. Hey, Chad, how do you handle this? Like, I've literally made this phone call to you before. So I'm like, how the hell do you do this when you're in this situation? Because this is one time I've run into this, and you've been through it. I don't want to exaggerate,
Been
but
doing
hundreds
reps,
of times.
Reps.
Well, you know, basically how I handle it, I had to get to a point where I didn't care. I had to get to a point where I was just ready to say, frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn. Okay? That said, when you're following me home, and just to find out where I live, and then coming back at 2 o'clock in the morning to throw shit at my house.
And you've literally had
I
to
mean,
deal with
I'm
this.
laughing at that, but
Yes.
it's not funny.
No, I've literally
Oh,
done
yeah,
it.
yeah. You have an opinion, then you be damned.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, I do have an opinion about
Yeah.
that, and yes, I'm going to care about that. You know, all those years ago when that was going on, the worst of it when it was going on, I got called a lot of things, incredibly offensive things. And people don't know this, but at the time it was at its worst. We had that Voices line, and it was a drive-by shooting for anybody who wanted to perform one about anything. And so I was the one transcribing all those phone calls, calling me all those nasty names. I was sitting there doing that and publishing it. All right. So this is kind of my moment that if you were one of those people back then, and if you were one of those people, you know the situation.
Could you tell by the voice?
I'm
What,
sorry,
who they
Chad.
were?
I just got to. I'm sorry.
If they called enough, yes.
Did it sound like this?
And no.
Sound like this.
I know where you live. I'm gonna get
No.
Gotta catch your child.
And see, they didn't make those threats. They didn't make those threats through the voices line. They just followed me home to do that.
Wow.
Okay?
I mean,
In
I
the
gotta laugh
voices
about
line,
it
they were
'cause-
calling me every name in the book.
Yeah.
But so this is a moment where I'm going to look at you and say, I mean, if you know who you were, all right. So here's what I'm going to. I own you, right?
Yeah.
When it comes to this public debate, I own you because I didn't suppress you, not in any way, shape, or form. Okay. When you were tearing me limb for limb, I was publishing every freaking word of it. And then I was walking into the back room watching people cry when they read that crap. I wasn't crying. I was just pissed.
Well, here's for a moment, Chad. You know,
That was during the time, that was the period of time where I had to come to that realization. I just don't, I can't care about this. I can't care about this.
Then you have reps upon reps to help build that
Right.
muscle.
You have to, that's exactly right. Right? It's like being in the weight room, man. You don't build that muscle overnight. You don't lift that 5-pound bar one time and all of a sudden you're better. So it took a lot of that. But at that same time, at the time when they followed me home and threw crap at my house, I handled it by, on the 4th night, after calling 911 every night and being tired of this nonsense, I handled it by going to bed and turning all my lights off, but opening up my bedroom windows. They were wide open.
Tell that, no.
Oh yeah, I do. I
He's
do.
a gangster, he's gonna
Because
be a
I,
gangster. I know this place.
I sat and waited, and little dude on a bicycle comes up the driveway right to my bedroom window. He knew it was my bedroom window. He had followed me home and he had watched me, and he knew that he could knock on that window and wake me up and cause problems for me. But on that night, when he raised his hand to knock on my window, he got hit in the chest with a whole bunch of blue paintball.
You can't say,
from
we're
a
going to edit
paintball
this
gun.
out. I didn't hear this. I didn't hear this.
Then when I called 911, I said, "This is who you're looking for."
He's got red all up on his chin.
But understand, Chad knows the law too, because here's the deal, man. That dude was trespassing. Paintballs are the least of his worries at that point. Because if someone's trespassing on your property and you believe them that they are there to do you harm, you can do just about anything you want to
I
defend
have
yourself.
what you call a tactical M1 banana for that.
Oh, now
Andy
we're
is
getting canceled.
prepared.
We're getting canceled with this.
But
We're talking about
That's
guns.
the one that sits close to my bed. Right? So,
Well, and I gotta
So,
say,
but
Chad,
it's
you
my
know,
choice.
it's from conversations like you that have helped me understand this stuff. I mean, there are obvious points in my life where I'm just like, why would somebody say something like that? That's why would they like this is ridiculous, like the epitome of ridiculousness. But yet, I mean, why? And it's just like, well, laugh about it. So now I just laugh about it. I'm just like, there we go again.
So to go to what the advice from your oracle would be is figure out what your line is that you're not willing to let people cross. Figure out what that line is.
Well, I gotta
and
say,
anything
mine's
below
pretty
the line,
big.
yeah.
I'm not going to even say it because people will go there. That's how sick people
Right.
are.
Well,
But people will reach through and try to mess with people around you, trying to be slick. And people really think they're slick.
yeah,
I'll tell you that.
they're
I'm a street kid.
especially
man.
when
I see
somebody
that 5
calls you up, it's like, hey, did you know that this is what so and so said to me? It's like, oh, okay, okay. Oh, that makes sense. Now all these dots are connected. I get it. Okay, yeah, don't worry about that.
Well, the best thing to do, is when you give a nuance to 3 different people, and you change the nuance to all 3, and you see what comes back, and you go, there it is. Roger that. I know what pipeline that came through because I put red dye,
Put it
blue
out
dye,
there.
and white dye, and
Yeah.
I know which one came back.
The money blew up in your
And it-
face,
yeah.
buddy.
I'm an idiot. You know what I'm saying? I'm just a dyslexic knucklehead who
love
walks
it.
around like an idiot and just pipes off the mouth.
Yeah.
But anyways, at the end of the day, though, freedom of speech is important,
Yeah.
and I will fight for that tooth and nail. I don't have to like what you're saying. I think some of it does get nasty, but even at the cost of just me enduring my part of that, when I get personally attacked or rumors are going around, honestly, I don't hear 90% of it anyways, and the little stuff that I do hear, I think it's interesting. I'm just like, wow, I'm glad I mean that much to some of them to do that. But I will also say this, when you put yourself in this cockpit, all three of us are in a seat, and whenever I chose to run for office, which I question more times than I should probably, it has grown me and taught me a lot though, and I'm grateful for it. I put myself in a position to not be who I was before that. And that was a choice that I made, and I'm okay with that, because when I'm in, and I'm all in, as you can tell, and as you can see where we're going. And I thought this would be a lot different, but it really doesn't bother me, and I know other people take it differently. There's only been a few incidences when it really wasn't to do with me, it was to deal with decision making. We had some high stakes things going on in the community, and people were activated, doing what they do, being silly and destructive, because that's all they know how to do. And you've got to try to stay in the, what can you recover through this chaos, because I know there was a lot of dead bodies going down at the time. And I knew I wasn't going to die. I just knew I needed to know who to sift through and who to keep and who to forgive and when to make sure you didn't let people back in.
Yeah.
Depending on their level of crazy. But they don't realize who's the craziest of the bunch, right?
We know.
Okay. all right. Moving on from this, we got two more topics to cover, and we will probably go a little bit over on the program, which is fine today, because I think these two things are very important to cover. I titled it, "It's All Poison, RFK Jr.," and I wanted to stop with that. But then with everything that's going on with Elon, USAID, Doge, however you say it, and it really has made the news consistently day after day after day. And I took some screenshots of some of the stuff with Doge. So I'll just say, RFK Jr.'s appointment is very interesting to me. I think that that's going to be a benefit going forward. My hope is that there'll be a benefit. But also am looking at it from the perspective of, it seems to be that he is flagging, or at least wants to show some interest in what we as Americans are consuming. And if you go through, you can download an app. I should have got it off the missus or whatever, but she downloaded an app, and you can scan anything that you have in your house that's a food product, and it will grade it. It will tell you, is this healthy for you? Is this not healthy for you? What's in it? You can click on what's that chemical. It'll tell you what the chemical is. You can cross-reference it to what's the other chemicals. You know, are you eating embalming fluid? I mean, it's possible, you know. I mean, with what they put in our stuff. But I'm really hopeful that this appointment, especially in what's transpiring, will uncover that 80% of what you go to the grocery store and buy really is poison. I mean, that's not making any not being fanatical in any way, but you know, when you can't go to the store and just get some apple juice that will rate 80 out of 100 that's good for you, and it's all 20 and 25 because they put all these chemicals and preservatives and all this stuff in here, and you're like, man, I can't even safely drink apple juice. I mean, what is safe? Eggs? Well, must be why they cost so much. I mean, but still, so I'm hoping. So then with just trying to group this all together and get your guys' perspective on whatever you want to pick up on this topic, you know, that's where I felt about RFK Jr. But you know, we can talk about Elon, Doge, what's happening there with all of that, and then I even pointed this out. USAID, I read an article, says that they will no longer be able to provide HIV medication to South Africa for individuals. And it really made me wonder, okay, you know, as all this stuff is becoming more and more, bringing more and more to light with what we're doing with our monies, you know, we can ask the question about whether or not we think we should be supplying monies to USAID to be able to fight HIV in South Africa. But where are we at with all this stuff? I mean, we've watched lot come out. I know you guys have seen it, where there's been millions and millions and billions of dollars that are unaccounted for, that they don't even know where it went. Not only
Trillions,
that, but that
actually.
trillion. But then there's things where you could argue, whether we should be spending money on that or not. At least that money's accounted
Yeah,
for.
to each their own.
But the bureaucracy on this end is out of control.
I think for me, I got to wait till this unfolds a little more because there's going to be mistakes made, and we talked about this a couple months ago, or a month ago at least. How much mistake is there going to be? And the spillage is real, just like the deportations. There's a lot of bad people that need to go, need to be pushed out, but there's a lot of really good people that I wish could stay. And because of one, the byproduct is we're going to lose the other at times. And there's nothing we can do about it. Laws are laws, rules are rules, and it is what it is. With this Doge thing, to be specific about what you're bringing up right now, I like the premise of it. I know there's going to be hell to pay for anything anybody does on either side of the aisle when they're trying to get things done. I'm hoping the spillage doesn't overcompensate, because I think there's payments and things in other countries and psyops that we do with money that comes through that fund that is going to help us destabilize or maybe give up ground, if you will, to other organizations and other countries that will come in and pick that slack up to maybe form alliances to hurt us. How much of that should we really be paranoid about? I don't know, because I'm not in those worlds. But I do know that there's a unintended consequence there, probably, from people that don't understand all the pieces of all of that, of what we're doing. But I do think we've gotten into too much of it. When you look at the media spins and what we're doing with those media spins, and the organizations that we're paying to basically pay to play in other countries, so we can make a spin on it, to do what we're doing for our own, to meet needs that we have in other countries. I don't know if that's good or bad or where it stops. I don't have that bird's eye view of it, but I do know that there's a risk there. It's a real risk if China comes in and starts doing what we were doing, because they're looking for those opportunities as well. Do we overthink that? And the answer for me is I don't know. But you have to realize that we cannot continue with $34 trillion in debt and not make something different. And I also think government has grown to the size where it has become the tail wagging the dog.
Yeah.
And that needs to stop at some level. Where? I don't know. I've just been thinking about this for 4 or 5 months. The possibility of it. It's only been happening for maybe a month, right? And so I'm curious. I try not to spend too much time on it, but from the little bit that I'm gathering, I think I just spilt my heart out on the table of where I'm at with it. I'm kind of in a watch and see pattern, because it's not my responsibility. There's nothing I can do as an individual to change the bigger picture. And I do know there's massive manipulation going on both sides of the aisle on this thing. And so I've got to wait to see where the champions are. I will tell you this, and this is going to show my politics big time. Everybody knows I'm pretty conservative anyways. But today's nomination is the one big one for me as an individual. Yes. For 1,000 reasons. And I'm going to leave it there. I liked Kennedy when he was running as a Democrat. I liked it. I thought, man, this is interesting. This is a legacy. This is like royalty of America, right? When you read into the family and the books and some of the stuff, there's a lot there, right? But when you look at royalty in the United States, that family is up there, right? It's a legacy family. And so I really liked him as a Democrat. I liked the way he spoke. I liked what he was talking about. I thought it was really interesting how he got attacked, and then how he switched parties, and then the message and how everything changed around him that fast. I just get suspicious of those things. Tulsi, love Tulsi. She was like one of my favorites 8 or 9 years ago.
Democrat before she became a Republican.
Yeah, I really liked her 8 or 9 years ago. I've always respected her fight, the way she communicates, just the look about her, how she commands respect in a room. She's smart, the way she speaks. I connect with her. I like her a lot. And to see that transition was just weird to me. And you've got this group of, I call them misfits, doing these crazy things that is unorthodox. I'm a little nervous because these are big stakes, but we needed to do something, because $34 trillion in debt is not going to cut it. when we're paying more in interest than we are servicing the security and the people who help us have the lifestyles we have here, which is our military, when we're servicing more in debt than we do to them every year, we're in trouble.
Yeah.
And so we have to figure this out. I think that's what we're doing. Right or wrong and indifferent, I didn't see anybody else do it, and I'm going to say this too. When Obama took on healthcare, I think that was ballsy. I don't like everything and how it turned out, but damn, he had the guts to do it. And a lot of people talked a lot of trash before that and didn't get it done. So I hope for the country that this turns out good for everybody.
Yeah, I agree. Chad?
Well, here's where I'm at with Doge, and understand there's a lot of different. This goes beyond USAID, because he's been posting some stuff about social security lately,
Yeah.
and people have been latching on to the idea that there's somebody that's 360 years old still in the system.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's a whole lot. I mean, there's so many things.
And how much of it is manipulation? How much of it's true?
That's sifting through all the BS is the hard part.
Well, and here's the thing. Every question that I have had with all of it, except the Social Security age thing, and I'll get to that in a second, those things can be answered with a true audit. That is not what we are getting. We're getting data dumps. We're getting data scrapes. Okay? That's the first step. The data is the first step of the audits. Anybody who's ever watched an audit or been through one would know this. Elon knows this. He's just not telling anybody.
It's a process.
Yeah. And call attention to it too.
Right?
Yes.
Anybody that's bought a company, sold a company, they know how this works.
So what's been going on is that everything that we don't like, we're labeling as fraud or waste. Just because we don't like it. Because we see the big number. But guys, there are more questions that need to be answered. Those will be answered if there is an actual real auditor to turn around and ask them. But that's not what's going on. And so I want that real audit. Okay? I mean, I can cherry pick one of the big headlines, Politico, $8 million. What was that $8 million for? Do we know?
Subscriptions.
Subscriptions. So they're not direct, it's not a direct payment to the editor to write what you want. It's a bunch of subscriptions. Now we can ask more.
Employees from the government, one of their benefits was to have subscriptions.
Exactly. So now we can ask the question, well, how many subscriptions do we really need? Because above and beyond that number, that's waste. It's not fraud, it's waste. It's only fraud if we gave them all that money and never expected them to return the subscriptions that we paid for.
And then whose waste?
But
Because
these
one
are
man's
all-
trash is another man's treasure.
Well,
I mean, you know.
Well, and we can.
This won't be our last conversation on
But
this,
I'm just
trust me.
saying, these are questions that get answered by auditors. They don't get answered by data dumps. They get answered by auditors. So that's what I want. And on the Social Security thing, and so many of the people I grew up with have been all over social media just crucifying people over the fact that we've got somebody that is, quote, 360 years old that's still in the database. I am begging you, type the following into your search bar. Alfred K. Brewer, Wichita, Chris Kohak. It will explain exactly how we have someone who is 360 years old in that database. Exactly. The story matches so well, it's not even funny. But again, unless you're willing to do that and ask that secondary question, all you're ever going to be able to do is politically grandstand that we have somebody that's 360 years old that's in the database. fact of the matter is, we don't have somebody that's 360 years old in the database.
There was a certain amount, there was not as many as they thought payments going out. But the number still, and I'm gonna go out on a limb here and I'll fix it next time we're here if I'm wrong. It's like, yes, that was wrong, there wasn't that many because of the way the program works, and we can get into the details on that, how they wrote the program that does that, and how it keeps it in there and it doesn't kick it out. And the other programmers, they were just getting highlights, and that's one of the other areas, they're just shooting stuff off really fast, which maybe the theater shouldn't be happening until we get data. So we can argue about that, this or that, they're trying to show movement, they're trying to show we're winning, we're trying to show that we're doing all this great work, and there is some good work going on, I'm sure of it. I think the number was $78 billion in payments went out. That to me is still a lot of money. And I know in their world, it's a lot less than they thought. But $70 billion is still a lot of money. Yeah. I mean, so there's some yin and yang that still needs to be figured out. And this is a long trip. The thing that bothers me is we got friends and neighbors, people we care about, people we do our haircuts, people that we shop with, people that we're next to at the gas pump, that we may know from church 5 years ago that we just say hi to that has a different view than you do. And it's tearing those relationships apart.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And I wish we wouldn't do that. But I can only do what I can for me. I'm grateful that we're trying to cut debt. I am nervous about some of it. But the big picture, I'm glad somebody's doing something about it. I think it's ballsy.
Yes.
So, to the employee of the month, big balls.
And I'm going to say something really wild.
No, this is crazy.
It
is what it is.
I'm going to say something.
I'm waiting for
really
that to come
wild.
out on my White House post.
We need to make some
Dude,
merch.
now let's do this real quick. I know we're running over here. The Valentine card on Valentine's Day, that was rough, man. I like to laugh, but I'm like, dude, you're in the White House, bro. You gosh, bro, come on. But here's the thing. Oh man, I'm sorry. I just saw something that makes me happy. Cash Patel. Boom, baby. I love it. Sorry.
Yeah, and you know, going from that, if you look
Big
at
balls.
that,
I wouldn't be surprised. We're so out of line sometimes with this team. If we saw that
I know.
on the
I know.
website.
Well, you know,
this is how crazy this is. That's not
yes.
okay.
Well, then, like
Yes.
I read something about how Donald Trump had put his mugshot up in the Oval Office.
I
Yes.
believe it.
I mean, it's okay. So, just a couple things.
But,
Because
before we move on, because you mentioned, that we're wanting to reduce debt. That's the purpose of Doge.
Yeah,
Okay?
that's what the website says.
So don't tar and feather me, people. The purpose is to reduce debt. What on earth are we doing talking about giving everybody $5,000?
So here's
From the quote, Doge savings.
oh no,
So here's
I
the
want my
Doge
check,
savings.
Chad.
And it goes through each organization, and it posts everywhere they found all those savings and the links to all the stuff where they call it the receipts. And so far it's at 55 billion that they can account for, that we have receipts to, that they can show you. This is why it's deemed one of those things, right? And I've been watching this. It's pretty interesting. And it's not as much as people are saying, because you're hearing the word trillion and you're hearing all this stuff, and we're at 55 billion only legit published savings. So for 1 month, when you're having trillions of dollars running around out there, 55 billion is what is the collateral damage so far? You've really got to watch and pay attention to that.
Yeah.
Because numbers matter, right?
Yeah.
Numbers
Well,
matter.
that goes back to what Chad was saying about fraud versus wasteful spending, and what I said about one man's trash, another treasure. And I just want to blip through this real quick. Here's some of the things that they've said that they've uncovered. Some $900,000 to Gaza-based terror charity called 1.5 million program slated for advanced diversity, equity, inclusion in Siberia's workplaces and business communities. 40 billion budget, including Sesame Street to Iraq. Let's go. Another one is Federal Emergency Management Agency, 59 million to house illegal immigrants in luxury New York City hotels was uncovered. Doge looked at the EPA. Doge looked at the EPA. They say they located 20 billion in waste. it's not fraud to say what to Chad and to agree with Chad on here. If the administration decided they wanted to spend $59 million to house illegal immigrants in luxury New York City hotels, that's not fraud.
Correction. If Congress allocated the money for that purpose.
Agreed. Okay. Agreed.
Because
agreed.
that's that is who's in charge.
If
when
you
it comes
took
to the
money-
But these are alphabet
But
soups
if,
again.
if you took money from FEMA, and you say it wasn't from FEMA, and you used it to pay for hotels at the tune of 50, that's fraud. And you stood on the White House podium, Kareem Birjir, whatever, and she said, no, we didn't do that, and there's records that did happen, that's fraud, dude.
Okay, now,
It's in my mind.
whether somebody's saying it didn't happen or not, that's a lie. But let's say, for instance, we have FEMA, and that is an organization that's part of the executive branch. They have all this money, and then they choose to spend money on X, Y, or Z, which they can then, be through their lawyers, deem as spending that's legal for them to do because they are helping people in the time of need. Or, we get into this legalese here. I don't know if it's not. I mean, I could agree looking at that and say that's some serious wasteful spending, and I can't believe
$34
that
trillion
we're doing
in
that.
debt. That don't cut it with me.
But it goes back to what Chad's saying.
Doesn't cut it.
Is it?
I would much rather.
I mean, this is the hard conversations.
Yeah,
that we're gonna
100%,
have to
and
have.
that's okay.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
want to, but I need to do some more studying before I get too far into it because I do know that some things have pissed me off when I see some of
Well,
this
I'm
stuff.
not saying there's no fraud there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I will
agreed.
never
Agreed.
say that.
Agreed. We're too early into it to be able to make this determination.
Ding.
When money gets moved, yes, and thank you because when
But you already made that comment.
here's some red flags. You're right. But here's some red flags. When right before Biden left office and big chunks of billions and billions and $50 billion, $100 billion gets moved around at the last minute to these pockets ready for these not-for-profits and stuff to distribute in some of these energy, clean energy, all these things, that to me is shady as hell.
Oh, it's shady. But I would long-standing say that our government is out of control. I've said on the program before, our bureaucracy is out of control. It was never intended to be this way. Government is wasting our money. They've been wasting our money big time. And we've just
let's
now
look at the
gotten to a
marketing
point
side.
where it's so big and so bloated that if something doesn't change, we're in some trouble. And just to move on here to the last thing I wanted to cover, which I think is interesting here, has to do with China. Okay? In so many ways, China is destroying us. Absolutely destroying
The
us on
2030
so
plan is real.
many different levels. The leading technologies of I believe I'm getting this right, there's 43 what would be classified leading technologies. China is number 1 on 37. So we're talking about, and it may not even be us, I didn't get that far into it, but of all the major technological advancements that we're seeing right now, and you know, let your imagination run away with you, they are number 1 in 80-90% of them. That's a big problem. And if you look at a map of China and the U.S. from 2000 to 2020, where we were big players in industrial or in global trade, we are just losing so much ground. I mean, they lead us in over half of the world. China is the number 1 leading global trade country in the world. And I'm not sure we could stop this. I mean, it's almost disheartening when you think about it. You look at some of this stuff and you're like, wow.
Remember though,
Wow.
facades are what they are in those countries. And I work with that country for many years now, people in that country. And they do things differently with numbers and money and stuff that we can't do. So at the end of the day, there's something different about the American spirit. They are firing, they are doing great things, they're doing a lot of really great things, but there's some peacocking there too.
because their financial systems are in trouble.
I wonder if the whole world is in trouble.
Oh, when America's $34 trillion in debt and we're having to pull away aid and stuff from other countries and do things that we want to do, we just can't right now. And we're trying to figure out the best way to go about doing it and reinventing that of how we're going to get back there someday. Right now, we got to rebuild our infrastructure and get ourselves right. And I did want to say that don't get it twisted that I'm not stupid. I'm just going to say it out loud. The $5,000 hand-me-out of our tax dollars coming back to us is an incentive, and it's also a hush money. It's just a way to say, see how good it feels to not have to be wasting your money. And it has nothing to do with Trump because he's done after this term.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it's for the next person coming behind him to continue that path. So just know that. I'm not going to mind. I'll cash my check happily.
Oh, I'll cash it.
Yeah.
You know what I'll say when I'll cash it? I wish you'd freaking pay our debt with it.
Well, what if we pay
But
our
you know what I'm going to do with it? I'm going to pay my debt with it.
And they're
That's
throwing
what I'm
out
talking
marketing
about.
slogans to see what sticks,
Yeah,
right?
I mean,
It's
come
20% of it's going to go to pay us, and 20% of it's going to pay debt, and then they got to readjust other because they can't use all of it because our programs are going to have to redo. They want to put programs into other entities that are already doing this work because we've started repeating ourselves in the government and funding things. And this has already been found out, and this has been known for a while. If you serve in a community, you know there's duplicate services. They're doing that at a massive level at the government. So they're sending money in different places that are supposed to be doing the same thing. And then when this group was starting to run out of things to do, they kind of reinvented themselves to do things they really weren't supposed to be doing to keep the jobs and keep the thing going and keep the funding coming. And this has been happening for the better part since the 60s, right? And we're too bloated, and we've got to figure it out. And so some of that money is going to be pushed back out. It's just going to be appropriated to another department that makes more sense to have that activity that's supposed to be going. Like the CIA is going to need some of that money for their psyops.
Well,
They can't just stop it because we need to be there doing some
And
of
to
this
say
stuff.
this, we're talking about all this, right? And this is what I find funny. And here's the hook. Unless something has happened since I was looking at this, you know, we're talking about Doge, and we're talking about them returning and giving people money and this and that. How this came about was they were talking about all the savings. A reporter asked Elon, are the American people going to see any of that money come back their way? And he said, I'll talk to the president about it.
Yeah, that exchange happened on X.
So this is where we've come.
There was a
with
guy that
this.
actually suggested it.
Yes, yes.
That
And he
happened on
said,
X. And you know, I'll
So we're making a
I'll just
mountain
say,
out of a molehill, or
we're
you know?
publishing a really great column about that, written by a libertarian
Oh,
on Saturday.
that's got to be a spicy one.
So
This Saturday?
this Saturday.
Yeah, we'll have to watch it. Okay, we got to wrap it up, guys. What's
Yeah, I
your
gotta get my
final
kid
word?
from school.
What's your final word, Andy?
Have a great week.
He's
Chad,
putting his
what's
gloves
your final
on.
word? What's your final word, Chad?
I need to warm up my feet. That's
Go
my
Patel.
final week.
Go Patel.
Okay, and then my final word is, you know, we've heard a lot. Beware of the great military or industrial complex, and I'm here to say, in our lifetime, we need to beware of the great technological industrial complex, folks.
Yes.
That is the future. Have a good weekend.
Roger that.